0%. Boom.
And when they went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread, do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. This is going to be one of the best episodes we've ever had on our...
Not like yesterday.
Oh, yesterday was good. Yesterday was good.
Yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before was the second best podcast ever?
I think it was the day before, because yesterday was pretty good, but it might be the third after today.
Okay.
This is hypnotically getting you to believe this is the best podcast out there.
Whoops.
Every now and then, like, you know, I walk in and my wife watches the podcast every day, right? So I'll walk in and she'll have the podcast on. And I'm like, oh, lighting was good today. And every now and then I'm like, oh, the lighting's so bad. Depends. This podcast is at 6:30 a.m. and there's actually a window in here. So I think as the podcast goes, the lighting changes.
Yes.
So
it is getting darker.
It's getting darker, yes. Eventually, this whole show might be in the dark.
Kind of like our politics.
That's right. It's getting darker. All right. This is John Bolton deciding whether or not he's going to run for president.
Trump's influence is declining. That hurts some people's feelings who want to use Trump to anathematize the entire Republican Party. But that gambit isn't going to work. If I do get in, it will be to win the nomination, not simply to prove a point. That's a serious, difficult decision to make, and I'm going to consider it in a prudent fashion. This whole idea that there's a Trump movement out there is simply wrong. The fundamental point in politics is philosophy. Everything else flows from that. Donald Trump has no philosophy.
Oh, it's 2022. I was like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, this is John Bolton. I mean, you think we dodged a bullet with Kamala Harris? We could have been left with this mustache.
Trump doesn't think in policy terms. There is no Trumpism. He's an aberration in American politics, and it's the job not of the liberal media, not of the Democratic Party. It's the job of Republicans to repair the damage he's done. And that's part of what we're about here. My kind of conservatism, the kind that I supported when Barry Goldwater ran for president and when Ronald Reagan ran for president, is the mainstream of the Republican Party. These outliers, and there are some, there is a virus of isolationism within the party, but it's not a conservative philosophy. It's not a philosophy at all. It's performance art.
You know, fast forwarding 3 years from 2022, he's just wrong. He's just wrong. I'd hate to have him as a presidential advisor, you know, like everything John Bolton says doesn't seem to turn out to be true. We're going to get back to John Bolton a little bit later today because he has it's pretty, he had a bad day yesterday.
Oh, okay.
He had a bad day yesterday.
Sorry, dude.
Bad day. Now, let's see. Okay, so we just have a couple people in the room today. That's fine. Pony Boy, we're going to miss you. Have fun with the IT guy. See if he can, like, stream Peasants' Perspective in all of the waiting rooms.
If he can't do it, you need a new IT guy.
Yeah, you need a new IT guy. If he can't set Peasants' Perspective as the homepage on all of the company devices,
default forever.
You need a new guy. Anytime I think of the IT guys, I think of the show The Office. Did you ever watch The Office, right?
No. I whenever I think of that, I think of the show called The IT Crowd.
Oh, The IT Crowd?
Way better.
I just think of the IT guys on The Office. You know, it's usually some foreign national coming in who happens to actually be a citizen, you know, born here, but everybody assumes he's not until he opens his mouth and doesn't have an accent. You know what I mean?
Well, the IT Crowd is a foreign show, and they're the two guys in the basement that cover this whole corporate building. And, you know, people keep calling with retarded IT questions, like, and then their response is always, "Have you turned it off and turned it on again?" And that like solves like 99% of all their problems.
Reset.
And so they don't do anything.
I remember I have an uncle down in Oregon that had a dental practice. And my cousin, who's my same age, right, was kind of became an IT guy in life, like just kind of really gravitated towards computers. And so he would help my uncle set up his network and stuff like that. And one day, I don't know, their system was down. And so he calls my cousin in, and, you know, you got to know the guy. He's such an even tempered person. Comes in, kind of looks around and just is like, have you tried unplugging the router? That was all it was. Just needed a reset. It was like a 4-hour drive for him to come and be like, unplug the router.
Exactly. They made a whole show about that.
Yeah, basically all they do. Yeah. Douglas Wyatt, good morning, peasants. Welcome. Okay, so yesterday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments on a case that's actually kind of important for us. You know, we the peasants, there's a few things that really matter. And one of the things is your home. You know, your home is your castle. So yesterday, the Supreme Court heard a case where this is the question presented: whether law enforcement may enter a home without a search warrant based on less than probable cause that an emergency is occurring, or whether the emergency aid exception requires probable cause. So essentially, police officers and first responders have this exemption to the Fourth Amendment that if there's an emergency, you could just go in. Well, they had an emergency that didn't actually rise to the level of probable cause, turned out to be not an emergency, barged into a man's home, ended up killing the man. Okay. And yeah, so they heard oral arguments yesterday, and this was the matter at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. This court has never allowed state officials to force their way into someone's home without a warrant or probable cause. It should not start now. There is no liberty interest more deeply rooted in the Fourth Amendment than the sanctity of the home. The court has long recognized that physical entry of the home is the chief evil against which the wording of the Fourth Amendment is directed. And the facts here well illustrate what's at stake with such entries. The police entered Trevor Case's home without permission, a warrant, or even probable cause, and they ended up shooting him in his own house. Thank you, Mr.
Wow.
Whoa.
You know, when we kind of get on this, we can kind of, it's very easy for libertarians to get on a tangent about government ills that makes us sound like Antifa. You know, that we're like all about getting rid of the government entirely. And while we would love to just get rid of the IRS, in the conversation today, right, we would love to dismantle many parts of the government. It's not that we oppose government in itself, right? No. We recognize the government is there to regulate our vices, you know, do for what we can't do for ourselves. But this concept of what is yours, right? If we empower a government and then give them the assumption that everything that is ours is theirs, right? That you can just walk into our house for whatever reason. Yeah. It's a little bit precarious, right? And so this idea that right now our Supreme Court is hearing a case that might do away with any concept of the castle doctrine, that they can just come in because they want to and potentially end your life. This is one of the things that was so scary about the January 6th raids was here's the government raiding people's houses that ultimately are getting charged with misdemeanors who are likely lawful gun owners. You know, what would you do if middle of the night, early in the morning, boom, 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 flash grenades. Next thing, you know what I mean? Like some people actually sleep prepared for that moment. Some people actually have a gun next to their bed. Some people, you know what I'm saying? Like some people might actually come out in their boxers with an AR-15 and a red dot light. You know,
returning fire.
Exactly, because who would possibly be barging into my house in the middle of the morning, or middle of the night?
Right.
And again, we got a phone call saying there was an emergency in here. Did you? This is what the danger of swatting. Right. Mm-hmm. Someone calls up and says, hey, someone's over at such and such address and they've got a gun and they're holding people hostage. Oh, boom. Next thing you know, your door's getting kicked in and they're saying, where's the gun? Mm-hmm. Very, very scary. So hopefully, in my opinion, hopefully they decide that they'll allow homeowners to defend themselves.
Yeah. And what people need to realize is that probable cause has pretty broad. It could get police into a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like their hands are tied.
There's an old meme that one of my brother-in-laws and I used to constantly refer to, and it was a police officer tapping the back of an old Buick. We're talking the old boats, right? They had like V8 and they were like 24 feet long, sat 5 people.
They're like 24 feet wide.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The old boats, Oldsmobiles, Buicks, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, they had this huge trunk, the trunk where you could almost lay down depth-wise.
Oh, yeah. I drove one of those for my driving test.
The cop is walking up to the vehicle and he taps the trunk and he goes, "You can fit a lot of probable cause in that trunk."
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So anytime we saw like a big trunk or a sketchy van or anything, a lot of probable cause in that van. All right, breaking news, and this is why this is so important. This is why we must have a government that recognizes our constitutional protections.
Let's do breaking news now. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement has just revealed in the last short time a police officer working in Illinois is an illegal immigrant. Radule Bajovic works for the Hanover Police Department. He graduated from the academy in August, but he has been living in the U.S. illegally for a decade after his tourist visa expired in 2015. His illegal status was discovered as part of Operation Midway. So we wanted to bring you the very latest on that.
It wasn't the academy background check. It wasn't the lie detector test. It wasn't the application process. It wasn't the provision of an I-9 for employment. None of that tipped him off. None of that tipped him off. So here's an interview of, oh no. All right, I can get it. Okay, that was scary. Close the window. That wasn't even the fun one. This was. So
how long have you been a police officer?
He's with Real America's Voice. He's on War Room all the time. Anyways, he was there for the arrest of this guy. So here's the gentleman being arrested here. Here's our police officer. Pretty good guy.
So how long have you been a police officer? January this year?
Correct. I just finished the academy.
You just finished the academy, okay. All right.
You had to get that.
But that didn't.
Just to confirm though too. Yeah. So they hired you on you had work authorization?
Correct.
And you were able to carry a firearm?
No.
Okay.
On duty, yes. Off duty, no.
So on duty you could carry a firearm.
State of Illinois, you need a forward and a CCW to carry a weapon off duty.
But on duty you could.
Correct.
Wow.
It's crazy.
He's not allowed to carry a firearm off duty, but on duty, you can carry the firearm they give you. This is the guy that might be finding some probable cause to come into your house. When I was in prison in D.C., at least half the guards were foreigners. Some of them didn't even speak English well enough to communicate adequately.
What?
I'm dead serious. I wrote about this. This was shocking. It's like, what? These guys, I wrote an essay about your flags on upside down. Okay. Because I was standing in the elevator one day, and Doug Wyatt, you're listening. You can attest to this. Okay. He was there. I was standing in the elevator one day, and guard's patch, American flag patch, it's a Velcro patch, is upside down. And I'm like, well, some guys were displaying American flags upside down in the pod because America's in distress. We're hostages.
Sometimes there's a reason for it.
So there was an idea that maybe this is a sympathizer. Like this is someone who's like, yeah, flag upside down. So I go, hey, your flag's upside down. And he looks at his flag and he's like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, it's because, there's hostages here. And, I was trying to confirm with him that he was an ally. Right. And he's like, oh, it's upside down. And he took it off and turned it around. And we had a captain in the elevator with us. And the captain's eyes, he's a big guy. Captain's eyes were like he's watching this exchange as he's realizing his guard doesn't know which direction the flag goes. And by the way, they have to qualify with firearms and authorized for deadly weapon. These are police officers.
Can you do 10 push-ups? Okay, you're in.
Just saying.
About this is I don't know anything about him other than he says he loves America. The problem is he's not even a citizen. So he can't own a firearm legally in our country, but he's being given a firearm by the state of Illinois as a police officer in the state. And apparently all you have to have is work authorization in this state. That is insane. You haven't even sworn allegiance to our country yet. And yet we're giving you a firearm. Now, this guy may be a great guy, but how many others are working in our country as police officers who aren't great guys?
Yes, that's
So how long have you been?
how many guys are working in our country that are police officers? Because this is the second time this has happened in a month. The last one was up in Maine. Okay. So how many police officers in our country are cartel members? How many police officers in our country are Russian mafia? How many police officers in our country are any number of other foreign gangs? We already worry about things. I mean, this is just reality. You know, we already worry about things like Aryan Brotherhood infiltrating the police units. And, you know, there's a lot of prison gangs that find their ways with, you know, dad's in prison and, you know, let's get the little nephew to work his way up and be a good boy and let's pay for school so he can become a cop. You know what I mean? I remember one time, my first 2 or 3 days in prison, I got into it with a guy across the block from me. His name was Turk. Okay, Turk, and he looked like he had big afro thing. Scary dude. He was there for carjacking.
Okay.
Scary dude. And he wanted to use my phone privileges and abuse them and take advantage of me, you know, a little innocent white guy across the way. And I finally, after kind of trying to be nice, I kind of stood up for myself. I was like, I'm not going to let you use the phone. I don't want to lose phone privileges. I got to be able to call home. And I yelled. And he was like very upset that I yelled at him and said that when these doors pop open, I'm going to come over there and kill you, blah, 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 blah. So then I did the worst thing you could possibly do. The guards came down because of all the yelling. And I said, that guy over there threatened to kill me. Well, now I'm a snitch. So the whole block blows up. Fortunately, we're in solitary confinement. So they closed my food hatch for 72 hours. And then I was really locked off. But they kind of saved my life, right? So that was first week. But Tark, one of the things he said is, we're not going to get in trouble. My family runs this place.
What?
And then he repeated it multiple times. My cousins work here. And cousins, I don't know. I mean, I've got Polynesian cousins who everybody's a cousin, right? I don't know what that means. But
doesn't that make him a snitch?
No, the point was, he's like, we have people here. Like, you're not going to get in trouble for me calling my people. I got people here, you know? And I was like, yeah, this is not cool. Not very cool. Meanwhile, have you seen what gold's been doing?
No.
Oh, man, look at this chart. No, I'm just saying.
Whoa.
It feels like something's going on. You know what I'm saying?
What the heck?
Silver's doing the exact same thing. This is when the subprime mortgage fallout happened. This is when the COVID financial fallout happened. Both little peaks. And what I wonder what's happening here. I wonder what the fallout after this one is. Look what the oil embargo did. So, yeah. Meanwhile, over in Vietnam, they're actually having literal runs on the gold bank.
Is our freaking currency gonna crash?
This is
a day.
What this is right here is we don't have to play this, but what
this looks like a run on a bank.
It is. So it's actually gold. So Vietnam closed like 83 million user accounts, bank accounts, because they didn't digitally verify. They didn't digitally. They're the country that's going control grid right now. So we got to watch Vietnam. They're communists, believe it or not, right? We got to watch Vietnam. They're having a rush on gold right now because it's the only way that they can have value that the state can't just turn off with the flick of a switch.
Oh.
So, and that's kind of happening all over the world. You know, Britain just announced their same digital ID thing, which of course is all going to tie back to your bank account. Duh. And something I thought was kind of funny, you know, a lot of people on the left, every time the Republicans, you know, midterms are coming, Trump's going to win. Oh, my gosh, we got to leave the country. Well, this woman actually did it. She left the country. She has some advice for people who might be considering doing the same.
Who is considering leaving the country to move somewhere else, make sure that the location you choose isn't based off of fear and lack mentality. I regret moving to Costa Rica. It's a beautiful country. I love the nature and wildlife, but moving to a third world country where I don't know the language, I don't have any connections, resources, or opportunities, that didn't make my life any easier by any means. I was just so scared of what's going on in America politically that I was in fight or flight. I was like, how am I going to afford to survive? Like, how am I going to find a place to live? Like, I was freaking out, and then I came here and made my life so much harder. And now I'm trying to go back, and I just like wish I didn't leave in the first place. And it's so weird to like want to move to America right now with everything that's going on, but I just left so many privileges and resources behind, and I want them back. It sucks. But I kind of grew up in an interesting way. I was like,
let me guess.
I was actually the poor kid with the billionaires.
Good for her for posting a video, saying she was wrong. Good for her.
Yeah, and we need to find commonality with the people that we are allegedly afraid of, right?
But that is hilarious,
Yeah.
Somebody who's like, man, I'd like to move to America.
Yeah, these are, listen, mostly when it comes to politics, we're arguing about tax rates and we're arguing about, social safety net. We're not like talking do or die. Now, the whole premise of this show is, why are the peasants on the TV? Do or die. You're trying to change things so bad that my grandchildren's life might not mirror my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just have the assumption I'm safe when I sleep in my bed at night. But depending on what the Supreme Court does today, my children might not be raised with that assumption. We might do the Canada thing where they're like, the best thing to do is just comply, give them everything you have and run out the back window. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you got Florida, it's like, yes, actually, burglars, please go inside. We encourage homeowners to shoot them. Saves us a ton of court costs. You know what I mean? Like, totally different mentality. Tim Burkhart here, representative from Kentucky. No, excuse me, Tennessee. Great guy. He's explaining how we do have to reach across the aisle.
I can respect a liberal. I respect Cortez. She's my buddy. I mean, she's a Marxist. She's a friendly neighborhood Marxist, as I always call her. I say stuff to her. She'll get on one of my videos and I'm walking off the floor of the house and I say, hey, Cortez. And she go, hey, Burchett. And I tell people, don't look at her too long. She'll steal your soul. And we have that kind of relationship and we can joke about it. And that's the trouble with what's going on in this country right now. Steve Cohen, probably as far left as you can be. He's Jewish and I try to be a Christian. We came from Tennessee together. We raised the speed limit together. And we were I always joked we'd go out to eat dinner at night because he was so far to the left and I was so far to the right. We met on the other side. But honestly, sometimes I just want to scratch his eyes out, but he called my mama when my daddy died, and you can't get past that. And that is what we've lost in this thing. And we had that in Tennessee. We would fight like cats and dogs, and then we'd go cry at our friends' funerals. And I just think Washington D.C.'s past that. And I think, and people think it's changing. I don't think it's changing because it sells. The violence and the bigotry and the hatred sell. And that's why you see a lot of these, I think, maybe I'm stepping on some toes, but I'll stop. But I think you see a lot of these foreign countries, if they don't have their young people killing each other, it doesn't keep those old dirtbags in power. And that's all sides.
Very sad to hear what he just said.
It's actually very revealing, right? The bigotry, the suffering, it sells. But we have to remember we're humans, man. And this is the peasant thing. One thing that when I got home from prison, I went to this church group and, here I've been a hostage and I've been away from my family. And, then it's this spectacular homecoming with a presidential pardon. And I go to this group and here I am sitting right next to the parent of a hostage in Venezuela. And I'm like,
oh boy.
Well, sometimes I'm the guy in the room that's got the one-up story and, not today, at least I was in a federal American prison. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't in a Venezuelan, who knows what was going on down there prison. Yeah. And that family met with Patty Murray, a senator here in the state, who we oppose. Again, is there anything that we agree on?
No.
Very little. But she heard them. She made some phone calls that she could. There was some other issues with some things that he had domestically that she said, I think I can make a couple phone calls and maybe help with that, which would then, of course, help with his release. And, because there was just things. And that was one of the things, this family, they're conservative, totally. And they were like, there was something to that. She cared, she listened, she heard, she wanted more feedback, she wanted follow up. You know what I mean? And I was like, no politician really gets up there without being a people person, without being someone that someone can come to for favors, that keeps track of that ledger. You know what I mean? And that's one of those things where it's like, we absolutely should disagree on policy. We should debate that stuff out. We should submit to the will of the Republic as far as when laws get passed and stuff like that. We're going to be as critical as anybody. We're going to look at this stuff and say, hey, this is working, this isn't working, because that's how you give them feedback to change things. Mm-hmm. They're not out here on the streets. Patty Murray doesn't have a little soft spot in her backyard that the EPA is trying to call a navigable waterway. You know what I mean? AKA the wetland. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to let them know. But we also have to recognize they're humans too. Like, at the end of the day, them just like us, we just have to live here. Mm-hmm. Their day in the sun might be right now, but just like Ecclesiastes tells us, it's all for vanity. The cycles come and go, right? Yeah. Anyways, speaking of cycles coming and going, I believe that we are on the verge of something very interesting. Okay. Tim Burkhart, who we just heard from, has been one of the preeminent people on front of this UFO disclosure stuff. And then you've got Representative Anna Paulina Luna. And we're going to play a little clip here about some movie that's coming out that's just full of politicians all talking about UFO disclosure. Here's the thing. We do argue about tax rates and stuff like that. But if these guys are getting interdimensional, like, I don't know why we're arguing about the price of energy.
I don't know why we're arguing about anything.
I don't know why we're arguing about anything. Yeah. Exactly. And this is one of those things. Ronald Reagan said to Gorbachev, if we have an alien invasion, will we fight together? And Gorbachev said yes. And that's ultimately that answer, right? I mean, they had all their economic problems. You can figure out why the Berlin Wall fell 25 different ways. But one of the big things was, ideologically, the Russians had not gotten too far away from the Americans, right? The Americans had to unify and become communist, frankly, right, by centralization of our economy in order to fight the war machine of Russia. And this is the whole Cold War, is just who can outspend each other on anything. Space race, mining apparatus, technology, nuclear front, better submarines, you name it. Our golden toilet's shinier than yours, right? This was a 60-year competition to see who could outspend each other.
Yep.
Okay. So at the end of the day, here comes Reagan and Gorbachev meeting in their little private meeting, which was disclosed later, right? And it was like, are we both worried about aliens? Yeah. Would we fight together? Yeah. Okay. Then we're really not that far apart, are we? I mean, at this point, what separates the two of us? You see what I'm saying? Our countries look the same. We just have MTV and more denim options.
But all of our people on both sides have to eat bread.
And we're all worried about this. The age of disclosure.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees. People have been hurt protecting and hiding this information.
Some people claim it would cost them their lives if they spoke out about these things.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for a species.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
The age of disclosure. And if you know anything about Star Trek timelines, we're just around the corner from the Vulcans coming down and being like, okay, you guys are ready to go intergalactic. You've got two teams, the reptilians and the humanoids.
Beat me up.
Pick your character. You know what I mean? Carlite says Project Bluebeam is coming. So for those of you that aren't aware of what Project Bluebeam is, it's this idea that the CIA and the intelligence community, military, whoever they are going to project holograms into the sky and convince us that there's aliens and we need to give our government more power. right? More tools to fight the aliens on our behalf. This kind of goes to the 1984, we're always at war with East Asia. I mean, Eurasia. I mean, South Asia. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. We're just at war with some it. And if they can create a hologram that we fight, oh my goodness, what a great way to bury the inflation. And you know what I mean? Like all the mechanisms. So that's the idea of Project Bluebeam. Carlitos, I tend to think I think Project Bluebeam will have a spot. There could be a place, there could be a false flag based on Project Bluebeam to get things in motion. But the idea that every single one of these pilots is seeing a hologram, or that every single person who's been abducted in a cornfield in Ohio, it was a hologram. That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, you know, once you talk to someone who claims to have met Bigfoot, you no longer think the government was there that one night at 2 a.m. to fool grandma. You know what I'm saying?
I got a question. If we start fighting holograms, how do you count for our losses?
GDP? I don't know, man.
No, I mean, like, if somebody dies in war.
What do you mean, how do you account for them?
Who killed him if we're fighting for holograms?
Well, I think the idea is that we're so overwhelmed we can't kill them. I don't know.
Oh,
That's the,
okay. So we won't have losses?
Listen, man.
No. I'm not talking about losses on the alien side. I'm talking about our losses. If we're fighting somebody, you know, presumably we would have losses on our side. But if we have losses on our side and we're fighting nobody, who's killing them?
A lot of training accidents.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know, man.
Just checking.
Again, I tend to believe like that would be a tool, but it won't be the worldwide thing. Like if they're using that tool, it's because something's happening and they need money.
Okay.
Right? And they can't disclose. This is kind of how I feel about going to the moon. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we went to the moon. I wouldn't be surprised if all of that's true. I don't think the camera footage is from the moon, right? That's my opinion.
I kind of wouldn't be surprised either way.
I tend to think we went, and then I tend to think that the camera footage is mostly fake because a million reasons why. Okay. But
yeah,
again, never going to know. You know why we're never going to know? Because we can't even figure out basic things like, you know, simple accounting at the state level.
Says, well, hey, cross the border illegally, you come to Oregon. Guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to need a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Oregon took taxpayer money.
Right.
And appropriated $15 million.
Right.
That's what Democrats did.
Yep.
That's just one example. There are hundreds. And so then when they turn to us and say, we don't have $2 million to pay for compensation for the wolf bill. And you're like, yeah, you're spending $15 million there. You're spending $20 million. I mean,
yeah.
Right. I
get $15 million on down payment assistance for non-citizens. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can get to $1 billion rather quick, 2 to 3 billion.
Yeah.
With rolling up your sleeves and getting in the budget. So when they come to us, it is offensive.
Yeah.
It's offensive for them to say, hey, we don't have any more money, but if you raise a tax and get us completely new revenue, or you increase a tax and get us new revenue by this increased tax, like you said, transit lodging, then we'll compensate the folks that live in your district. And that's where I hope folks realize that's the government they got.
Right.
When they're
the government that pays for its pet projects, attorneys for illegal aliens, down payment assistance, won't account for it, right? Won't really tell you what's going on.
This is the whole
and then wants to raise taxes for some other obligation they have with the wolf bill or whatever.
This is the whole problem with all these blue cities that want to fund all of the DEI and pet projects that they have before they fund all of the base stuff.
Necessary functions like fire service and police. Exactly. Now, that's Oregon. The nice thing about Donald Trump is the Doge that he created with Elon Musk has made it cool to go out and find the budget stuff, right? And it's kind of made it a real political topic. There's always been your Rand and Ron Pauls out there. There's always been your budget hawks, but they've had bad messaging, to be quite honest. And of course, they're offering nothing back to their constituents. Well, this was yesterday. Department of Justice filed some lawsuits because guess what? City workers were not very good stewards of funding.
Epidemic. California state officials failed to provide meaningful oversight over the individuals who received most of these funds, and they had little to no answers to the public's demand for accountability. Well, that accountability starts today. Today, we are announcing significant developments into our investigation. we're making public 2 criminal cases relating to 2 separate real estate developers who were involved in misappropriating millions of state funds intended to combat homelessness. This morning, federal agents arrested Cody Holmes, a 31-year-old Beverly Hills resident and the former CFO of Shangri-La Industries, a downtown...
If you're 31 and your business name is Shangri-La...
LA-based developer of affordable housing for defrauding the Home Key program that is administered by the state of California. The program awarded grant money, which included federal tax dollars, for specific projects to convert motels into housing for the homeless and to operate the units. By April of 2022, Shangri-La Industries, where Holmes was the CFO, had co-applied with multiple California cities to convert numerous properties in California, including a location in Thousand Oaks. The state asked for proof that the company had the financial capacity to build all the projects. In response, Holmes and Shangri-La knowingly submitted fake bank statements which claimed to show that developer had about $160 million on deposit. Not only were the bank statements fake, our investigation shows that Shangri-La and its affiliates had nowhere near the amount of money they claimed they had in the fake bank statements. The state agency ultimately paid nearly $26 million directly to the developer for the Thousand Oaks project. Even though the developer received all the money from the state, the developer did not complete the construction of the Thousand Oaks project.
It's shocking.
Instead, our investigation has showed that at least $2.2 million was diverted to pay Mr. Holmes's American Express bill, which includes purchases at luxury retailers. Essentially, he stole the money.
I love how it's starting out. And the government, this is an ongoing investigation.
Epidemic.
So they've got the perps.
California.
Now they got the guys who are the end users. Now they're going to go back and look at the government workers and be like, how many of you got greased? Because there were like 19,000 different spots that you should have caught this guy, including the failure to do the construction.
I love this whole report, but it could have been shortened down.
In other
Just
words,
for that last
he
5
stole
seconds.
the money.
Yeah, basically he stole the money.
Now, here's one in Oregon. An Italian man unlawfully residing in Oregon was sentenced to federal prison yesterday for his role in a large multi-state criminal conspiracy that stole more than $2.4 million of benefits from hundreds of low-income and food-insecure individuals and families. Spria, 29 years old, was sentenced to 24 months in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. I got 7 years and 3 months and 3 years of supervised release, okay? And he's ordered to pay $61,000 in restitution, even though he stole $2.4 million. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, he was protecting government-funded programs like supplemental nutrition assistance isn't just about preserving funds. It's about safeguarding trust in a vital lifeline that millions of families depend on to put food on the table. Yeah, this is pretty incredible stuff. And it's all facilitated by the way that the government has set up the system. By the theft of benefits intended for families in need of is a serious crime. We remain committed to holding accountable those who exploit public resources for personal gains. By siphoning millions of dollars in government funds intended for food insecure households, this illegal criminal alien proved to be one of the worst of the worst. Yeah, the crazy thing is, it's not even the worst of the worst. So we've got some type of Slavic. I can't remember who that cop was. I don't know what his nationality was. Police officer.
That looks close.
You got Italians scamming $2.4 million from the welfare program. I mean, holy smokes, man. Now, this just comes back to why it's so important that Donald Trump gets his attorneys in office. He posted this yesterday. He says, I have 8 great U.S. attorneys, highly respected, all who will not be confirmed for their positions in various highly consequential states only because they're Republicans. And the Democrats have convinced Chuck Grassley to honor the stupid and outdated blue slip tradition, which precludes very talented and dedicated people from attaining high office. The Democrats violate this practice in order to get people in, but Republicans just don't. These great people's careers have been badly hurt by the radical left Democrats using an old and ridiculous custom strictly to their advantage. What a shame. So it's not even a law. They just do that. Now, the thing about this situation, just in the last day, there's been multiple of these states that have had these if not revelations, actual criminal indictments based on corruption and misuse of public funds. And these investigations have centered around the government itself and the distribution of that. Trump needs his attorneys in. Think about it, just the good old boys club, right? What are you protecting, right? Who cares who the attorney is if all they're doing is following the law? Don't we just assume the law is being followed, right? It wouldn't matter who it was if the possibility of weaponization wasn't there. And one of the things about weaponization is everything's a two-edged sword. On one hand, you can weaponize the government to go after someone, and on the other, you can weaponize the government not to go after someone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I always think of this when I got pulled over the most recent time, and the cop's like, you were going 91 and a 70. That's 21 over, Ron. 21 over. That means, I'm bumped up from the cheaper ticket to the bigger ticket. And she goes, but don't worry, I wrote the ticket for $90.
Oh.
Well, why would you do that? You just committed perjury. And you said it on body camera. You were going 91, but don't worry. On the government form, I lied and put 90.
Huh.
Oh, but it's for you, though. It's for your benefit, right? Back the blue? Huh? Excuse me. Don't enjoin me to your fraud. I have no intention on perpetuating a fraud upon the U.S. government or its agencies or otherwise.
Right.
Please be truthful. Enforce the laws equally and even-handedly. Maybe I wouldn't choose the speed. But if I just assume that you'll knock it down, I'll set my speedometer at 93 or 92. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why everybody drives 5
That's why
over.
everybody goes just a little over, because the cops are committing fraud every time they write a ticket. Oh, but it's okay. It's for you. We like the people. No, now you've just enjoined me into this nonsense. You see what I'm saying? So with these attorneys, it shouldn't really matter who they are. They should follow the law. But clearly, that is not how the system actually works, because by your fruits you shall know them. Why are you holding up these attorneys then, Chuck Grassley? Well, we've got to protect what? The good old boy system. The weaponization, both to use the law and to abstain from using the law, AKA the Democrats did both of these things. We're not going to go after public enemy number one, but we are going to come over here after public enemy number two, right? Same crime. It's the Joe Biden can get away with classified documents and get a slap on the wrist. Donald Trump gets 92 felony indictments. You know what I'm saying? On one, you abstain. I'm just going to write the ticket a little less. He's an old man. Jury probably wouldn't convict you. It's an old war. It was Afghanistan. No big deal. Oh,
He's got dementia, man.
He's got dementia.
I mean, he can run the country.
I'm not saying I got all the answers, but here's the thing. Every time we get out in the weeds and we start asking for government for more benefit, and we don't hold them accountable for the money that they're spending, you're going to have politicians like this Mandami guy in New York who's just going to tell you straight up, I'm going to pay for more things for people, and there's only one way to pay for it.
Oh, boy.
The question is how you'll make them free.
We will fund the revenue that would have otherwise been brought in from fares. And that's something that we would do in partnership with Albany. And I've put forward two proposals. The first is to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers by 2%. That would raise $4 billion. The second is to raise the state's top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey, which would raise $5 billion.
But the question.
Okay, so basically he's going to give free bus fare to anybody in New York by just straight up raising taxes, not finding it in the budget, not cleaning up the overspend, none of that. Nope. You think Oregon's bad? You think California's bad? What do you think's going on in New York? Those are the masters of the universe over there. He's just casually going to raise $9 billion to pay for bus fare by, taxing more of the rich.
Yeah.
Hey, I got news for you. Some of you might be rich and not know it. That's the crazy thing about those percentages, right? Like if you're making 250 grand a year, you're like in the top 1% with Bill Gates.
You're uber rich.
You're uber rich, according to the bell curve scale. You know what I mean? Which is shocking for people that make that amount of money. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Because you're just barely getting by.
You may or may not know this. Yeah, you may or may not know this, but neighborhoods around the country that are filled with people who are six-figure income earners are the vast majority of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Okay? Most neighborhoods are full of people making 50, 60, 70 grand a year. Maybe you double up households to get to that higher income bracket.
Yeah, 120, 140.
People who live in nice subdivisions, manicured, you don't realize how good you have it, right? Go ask our lady down in El Salvador.
Oh, boy.
How she feels about it. I had so much privilege that I didn't even recognize, sidewalks. Anyways, that is kind of one of those shocking things is, we'll do the top 1 or 2%. You might be in that top 1 or 2% and not realize it, right? Because what makes you feel wealthy or not is usually has more in relation to how much you spend every month to how much you make and less about what your actual bottom line is. That was one of the most disturbing things when I started.
The top 1% of earners in the entire world is, the level is like $34,000. So if you're earning more than that, you're in the top 1% of the world.
And you go to the United States and, 150 puts you kind of in that top 1%. It's like, it's surprisingly, the scale drops down pretty low.
Yes.
The other thing I remember, one of the most disturbing things that kind of sunk in on me when I was really at the height of my real estate game, flipping a lot of houses, I had this one guy who came to us and he was a pharmaceutical sales rep. Make good money, right?
Yeah.
Well, he, when he was applying for hard money loans to see how much he makes, and he's making just a few dollars shy of $500,000 a year.
Okay.
Straight compensation. Like that's what the cash he's getting paid. So this is like 40 grand a month or more is coming into his bank account.
Yep.
He's broke. I mean, he's broke. Right. He's actually selling his house to move into a smaller house to try to squeeze out a few $100 in his budget.
Maybe he could just like stop drinking coffee every day and save the money up.
Oh, that's the thing. Like, the propensity to spend, right? Like what about his life was very different than mine? Not much.
Yeah.
Right. But he drove a little bit newer car, but the payment was double mine.
Yeah.
He lived in a much nicer neighborhood, which meant his mortgage was twice what I paid.
Well, he probably had
I drove an extra 20 minutes to get to our meetings.
He probably had every TV service available. He probably had,
I'm sure. Yeah. Because what's $100 or whatever for this membership or the 3 gyms I'm worth? Who knows? Point was, I was like, wow, apparently like income level isn't determinant here. It's actually what you do with that budget. Because on the other hand, I'd go meet someone that was a school bus driver that was like happy as a clam because they were saving 10% of their income.
This is a good spot to drop in. I got another fortune cookie thing for you.
Okay.
This fortune cookie fortune said, as the wallet grows, so do the needs.
Yeah.
And that fits with what you're talking about, because as people make more money, they just start spending more money and they're just broke. You're broke all the time, no matter how much you spend or how much you make.
Peter Thiel, who's one of the founders of Palantir, as well as probably like 3,000 other companies. So it's like, Peter Thiel of Panda Express fame or something. You know what I mean? Like he owns everything. But Peter Thiel, one of Elon's partners in PayPal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was recently caught on a hot mic talking about, the recording was so bad I could never play it on this show, but he was talking about how the billionaires, right, in his lifetime had a lot of freedom. And once you got to a certain wealth amount, you're, making trips to Switzerland, the Caymans, and the Bahamas, and
kind of doing whatever you want.
The offshore accounts, and you're putting money away. And he goes, anyways, he named a few things. It was like some treaty and then something else and something else. And basically he says and then changing of the privacy laws in Switzerland. And he's like, there's nowhere to run with your money. He's like, if you're a billionaire, you have basically one spot to put it, and that's Bitcoin. And even that isn't really like secret if people know it's your Bitcoin wallet. Right. He's like, the whole point is anonymity, and you can't be very anonymous very long when you're flouting $1 billion in a Bitcoin account.
No.
Because everybody's watching it. So if you go to spend it at the local coffee shop, they'll pull some security footage and figure out it was you spending out of that Bitcoin wallet. Right. And it's like, it's not impossible to trace that. And so he said, essentially what he was saying is we have no privacy as billionaires now. And you get this increasing sense that it can all be taken away from you in an instant because you're relying on all these governments to hold that value and that wealth and that money for you. And you're relying on their legal systems to enforce contracts and things like that. And when you get to that point, you know how easy it is and tempting for the government to, quote, nationalize an industry. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden
all these governments start getting slippery.
All of a sudden your profitable copper mine that's been in the family for 10 years is suddenly property of El Estado de Mexico. You know what I'm saying? And it's just gone like that. And he was describing how there's just no freedom. Well, I propose that there is freedom, but the freedom is in doing it different. It's not in the raw accumulation of wealth. It's in the very freedom is not being subject to those problems, which, yes, Ron, more money, more problems.
So we super free.
We super free. we super free.
Broke.
We're not even reading ads because they're only worth like 17 cents. Okay? So we're doing it for the love of the game, right? Unlike the Democrats who are doing it for raw power, and their odds of getting power at the midterms are going down.
But we were looking at the Democrats with a very clear shot of taking control of the U.S. House of Representatives, according to the Kalshi prediction market odds. We saw them at an 83% chance. But those odds have gone plummeting down. Now we're talking about just a 63% chance, while the GOP's chances up like a rocket, up like gold, up from 17% to now a 37% chance. So we were looking at the Democrats.
These are betting markets, right? This isn't poly market. This is whatever prediction market. And they're basically saying the Republicans are starting to come up in the odds a little bit. Now, it might be hard for us to believe that anybody's going to vote for a Democrat after what we just saw the last 4 years. But Joshua Goodman from the AP, who has no idea what's happening behind the scenes with elections and stuff, posts this. New prosecutors in Miami have charged voting tech firm Smartmatic, one of the sister companies of Dominion, over $1 million in bribes allegedly paid to officials in the Philippines. Three Smartmatic executives, including its co-founder, were charged in 2024, but at the time, the company was not named as a defendant. And Emerald Robinson tells him, you clearly have no idea what's going on, but that's why you work for the AP. It's hilarious. Just look at the articles about election fraud you wrote in 2020. Excusing Smartmatic from any of this. So is it possible that, the purchase of Dominion, the suit against the Smartmatic for bribing election, bribing other, do you think maybe the betting market's going, maybe the Democrats don't have the cheat built in the bag? You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see. Meanwhile, with Donald Trump, it's like he's got so many things that they're working on that are significant. Like, it would be really interesting, and it's kind of almost outside my desire. It's become so big to do, but it'd be interesting to take a topic like this. For example, shipbuilding in China versus shipbuilding around the world, right? Shipbuilding with our allies and stuff like that, and how China has undercut the shipping market in the entire world to gain essentially worldwide influence over shipping. And finally, we have a president who's paying attention to this and talking about basically it's a strategic industry that we have to do better at, which affects us. We have a shipyard right here in our county.
Something that has been in the works for many, many months. Back in April, the U.S. Sent a very clear signal, released notices, and gave a lot of details on how it was going to do this. Again, we're trying to carve out a situation where U.S. shipbuilding can have a renaissance. We have the Koreans who have invested in the Philly shipyard. We have a couple of orders for LNG carriers there. China, over the past couple of decades, has really distorted the global market for shipping, so it makes it hard for a country like the U.S. or other countries to have a share. We also impose port fees on, roll-on, roll-off vehicles from all countries. So it's not just China specific. And we've heard from the major carriers that they're actually not going to increase their fees to customers because of the port fees. So this is something where we've tried to thread a needle. The Chinese, again, are overreacting like they've done before. But I think at least on the U.S. side, there's been a lot of effort to craft this remedy in a way that promotes shipbuilding, but also ensures we can export.
So basically, there's been the trade war with China is getting pretty intense, and they're doing things like, more tariff revenue one way and the other. And then they've got import controls on what can go and what can't go. They're holding back critical resources, flooding the market with stuff we don't need. But then that still undercuts our industries. You know what I mean? So, and all of this is happening because China, again, everything has a cause and effect, right? There's always a reason to cause an actor to act outside the status quo. And in China, the reason why they're acting outside the status quo is they have every major economic crises you can imagine all stacking up on them all at once.
Plenty of questions about the Chinese economy. How would you assess the Chinese economy today?
Well, their youth unemployment is quite high. It's over 20%.
Wow.
For growth, they've outlasted the possibility of having real estate growth or infrastructure growth. So they're really focused on just exporting, and they have enormous amounts of overcapacity in manufacturing. They can't flood the U.S. market anymore because President Trump has put tariffs in place. And so they're starting to find other markets to push their things. So their economy has some structural challenges.
There are plenty of questions about
to say the least. They've got 20% unemployment amongst the youth, and there's more 60-year-olds than 20-year-olds in that country.
Oof.
It's like they've already hit the iceberg, the Titanic, right? It's already hit the iceberg. So at this point, they really are deciding who's going to get on the life rafts. Like they're probably, they probably still have the people of China thinking they're rearranging chairs on the deck. But meanwhile, they're figuring out who's going to end up in the life rafts. They're in serious trouble. But just like anything, they're going to fight. And how are they going to fight? They're going to flood the world with goods to bring revenue. They can't overinflate their real estate anymore. They're in the midst of that crisis. They can't build new ghost cities anymore. That's already been kind of revealed to be a complete mess up. Export. That's it. That's all they can do. Export, export, export. All right. Now we are going to be talking about our once fearless presidential candidate, the mustache himself, John Bolton. Started out with that this morning, listening to John Bolton talk about how Trump has no philosophy, right? But yesterday, John Bolton had a very, very bad day.
Well, tonight, 3 separate indictments have been unleashed in the last hour. Let me walk you through them. The first is a former national security advisor, John Bolton. 18 felonies accusing President Trump's former national security advisor, the man who turned against the president, of mishandling classified information. Thousands of pages, the government alleges, were sent by John Bolton to 2 relatives who lived in his home, giving secret information from his daily doings at the White House. Some of that information was classified. Other documents taken home or to his office were marked classified, highly sensitive, top secret, at the compartmentalized level is what the indictment says. This is a very serious national security indictment. In fact, one of the most sweeping I've seen in a long time as a reporter. Now, while that was going on, a separate grand jury in Miami indicted Smartmatic, the election computer company, the company that creates election machines. The government, the Trump Justice Department, accused Smartmatic of paying $1 million in bribes to win an election contract in the country of the Philippines. That is a second one.
Why am I so excited? Wait, you mean the Smartmatic company was taking bribes?
What?
Oh, man.
Shocking.
So, John Bolton, 18 charges.
Yeah.
Very serious charges. I think somebody added up. It's like 100 years in jail if you add them all up. They'll never do them consecutive. But there's a good chance if the charges stick, he'll probably finish his time on this earth in jail, I think. Now, unfortunately, John Bolton had spent a lot of time criticizing Donald Trump for essentially what amounts to the exact same activity, minus the whole being the president.
Will have to prove it. Then he has committed very serious crimes. This is a devastating indictment. I speak here as an alumnus of the Justice Department myself, because not only is it powerful, it's very narrowly tailored. They didn't throw everything up against the wall to see what would stick. This really is a rifle shot. And I think it should be the end of Donald Trump's political career.
Now, for those of you that were listening, you might have thought John Bolton was assessing his own criminal indictment. It wasn't. That was the identical one that Trump got that he was assessing. So I'm just saying John Bolton's words in this indictment they did, many of his words and public statements were used against him. I don't know exactly which ones, but it was a lot of stuff like this.
Prison.
Well, I think that's a small amount of the sentence he actually deserves. He's committed clear criminal activity. He's no more a journalist than the chair I'm sitting on.
He's talking about Julian Assange, by the way.
The information that he divulged did, in fact, put many people in jeopardy. It undercut the ability of the United States to have confidential diplomatic communications, not just with other foreign governments, but in many countries with dissidents, people who even speaking to American diplomats could find themselves in trouble. And so, you know, he's been complaining about his treatment over the past period of time. He's the one who sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. Now he faces extradition to the United States. I presume he will get due process in the United Kingdom to determine whether extradition should go forward. And when he gets to the United States, he'll get due process here. And I hope he gets at least 176 years in jail for what he did.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. He'll be judged by the sticky judge. You know, one of the things that really, like for me, right, 2020, we're doing this podcast, we're watching riots. And what am I doing every day? Oh, that guy needs to go to jail. Oh, that person needs to go to jail. And then I go to a protest. somebody else calls it a riot, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I guess we cash the checks we write, don't we?
Your counterpart was saying the same thing.
Exactly, which is why some people are like, you have this aura of kind of hesitancy. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'll poke you in the eye, but then I'm like, don't poke me back. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand if, you know what I'm saying? Like, we want to point this hypocrisy out, but we want to cast a cloak of charity, give people a chance to own up and make right, and make apologies and make amends. I want to live in that world. I want to live in the world where I can say, I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake going to the rally. I made a mistake shaking the gate. I made a mistake, right? I want to be able to look at these people and go, do you understand where you went wrong here? When you started throwing rocks, do you understand there's a consequence that has to be paid for that? You know what I mean? Like, I paid the consequence. I held my head high. No one can look at me and be like, oh, you argued that you were justified in your actions. Nope. That was never my argument.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I took it in a different direction completely because it wasn't worth arguing, because I knew I was going to be measured by the stick by which I measured. John Bolton, this is a tough one for you to swallow, right? I don't have to say you should spend 170 years in jail. I can say you said that about someone who had pretty much the identical charges and allegations levied against you. Yeah. Right. And this is Nicole Wallace on MSNBC. And you got to look at her face. Now, you need to understand, Nicole Wallace's husband engaged in the exact activity that John Bolton engaged in, leaking of classified materials. He's on the list. He's also one of the intelligence agents that signed the letter saying that the Biden laptop was Russian disinfo. So she's on TV reporting this, and this is hitting very close to home. Okay, very, very close to
which
home.
One of these women
She's
is
the one on the left.
Okay.
Yeah, so John Bolton was charged with 18 federal counts, and I apologize, I'm going to look down. I'm reading this. We're still just getting this. We have the first 8 counts are transmission of national defense information. The second set of 9 counts, that's counts 9 through 18, is retention of national defense information. And that looks like it's U.S. Code Title 19, Section 793D and E, which is part of the Espionage Act. Now, there was another statute that they were considering, and it looks like they've only charged him with those Espionage Act statutes, but we're still reading through this indictment. It's 26 pages long. There's a lot of background information here, and I apologize, but we're literally just getting this in right now, so I'm still...
Like, you have no idea what he's been up to. There's a lot of background information here. I thought he was a Boy Scout. All I knew he was helping kids with the Eagle Scout projects. Classified information. Andrew Weissman, again, another person who is on this list of, we know for a fact from the different IG reports that Andrew Weissman has also been leaking classified information in the same manner Bolton did. So he's going to do a little bit of an assessment against Bolton here.
Sure. Well, so the part about retention, those seem to...
So keep in mind, he was Robert Mueller's lieutenant. So every time you would hear a news story about what the Mueller team was investigating, or a grand jury, or who was invited to the grand jury, or, oh, hey, we have a new piece of evidence that we're assessing that makes a connection between... That was all running through this guy right here, Andrew Weissman. He was the one likely authorizing and or making those leaks.
Mirror, that is the statute that, if memory serves, is exactly the same thing that was charged with respect to Donald Trump. But as you know, Donald Trump said he shouldn't have been charged, and he didn't do it. And there were his documents. And, in spite of the fact that you could see, we all saw images of his retaining documents that were alleged to be of the highest possible classification. The part of the charge...
Which is fake news. Remember, they brought in those documents and put them on the floor to take pictures of it to make it look like it was classified?
That is different. Is not just retention, but the reporting that we just heard was also transmission. And this is where I do have to put on my former intelligence community hat. I want to see what those charges are. There are people who are low-level people who get charged with, if they did this intentionally, not by mistake, but if they not just retained but transmitted classified information, that is a serious offense, and it is something that as somebody who is in the intelligence community cares deeply about, and that is why people care deeply about what Donald Trump was charged with doing, because these are documents that should not see the light of day, and you are trained on how to keep them. And if it can be shown that you did this intentionally, there are lots of people who have been prosecuted, and lots of people who have gone to jail and served time for crimes like this. So again, I'm not in favor, obviously, of the president ordering investigations of singling people out, but I do think that if you look at just the nature of the charges, there may be a real difference here between the John Bolton case, not in terms of its import, not in terms of what it means in terms of the message of what the president has done to the Department of Justice, but these really could be quite different than what we have seen with James Comey, where I can't even see a there. And even Letitia James, where at best it is the most minor thing, and I can't imagine why this would ever have been brought as a federal case. This may be in a very different category.
So the Letitia James, it's a minor thing, like the charges against Trump, some bookkeeping, calling a legal expense a legal expense. So you can tell he's like, there's no cover for John Bolton on this one. When you go read through the offense, he had an AOL account. The AOL account got hacked by Iran. He was sending messages to his publicist saying, this is top secret. Shh, we can't talk about it. More incoming later. Like, he was fully aware he was sharing classified information. Every time you saw him on TV, Trump's got to die in prison because classified info. He was doing it himself. He was doing it himself. Now, Bolton was known as a warmonger. Donald Trump shared a funny anecdote about it.
But I said, don't go in. They went in. It was such a bad decision. So Bolton, see again, you get back, Bolton, a real dope. But I thought he'd be great because he was so stupid. He was like a boiler. Every time, if somebody shot down a little tiny crappy drone that cost about $15, he'd want to go to war with Russia. No, I think he was great for me, though, for a period of time because he was a nut job, and everybody, I could see his face get red with that stupid white mustache, and he'd be ready to explode. And this was good for me. I went to Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I took this moron with me, and he never said anything. But when Kim Jong-un saw him, he said, oh, shit, I think the guy wants to go to war. So he was great for me to negotiate with. The same thing with Russia. When Putin saw him, I'd be very nice. I'd say, hi, Vladimir, how you doing? And then Putin, so, 2 rows back, and he'd see that moron, and he'd say, holy shit, this guy wants to go to war with me. And I got a lot of what I wanted.
He's bad competent with Bolton. He's listening to Bolton. Bolton will bomb anything. Ponyboy says, if they can send a guy to jail, John Rowe, for getting a frequency in a job interview, Bolton needs to go to jail. Yeah, and not only that, his son was asking him, Dad, what is it that you told him? And he goes, I told him the frequency of the motherboard hurts. And he got a superseding indictment for sharing it over a prison phone. So they took it very serious, even though, according to my cellmate, that you could Google the frequency. It's like the frequency wasn't the issue. It was the encryption that was the real thing, which he had nothing to do with. But yes, you're right, Ponyboy. If they can send him to prison and sit and rot in a prison cell for 3 years pretrial, being abused by other inmates in the prison the whole time over what it really amounts to Facebook trolling. His whole case was public Facebook posts. Because I know most Russian spies that are doing dirty deeds with foreign countries, they like to post about it, on their public Facebook.
Well, they do most of their best work on Facebook.
Most of their best work. It's out in the open. It's absolutely stunning. Trump was asked if he's going to be doing regime change in Venezuela. It's kind of an interesting question, but pretty relevant.
Okay. Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found. And I view that as a good thing, not a bad thing.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela is feeling heat.
Okay, so I want to put this from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. In the beginning, we started out with the Supreme Court hearing if your local police department can kick in your door and shoot you in your home without probable cause on a alleged emergency that might not even meet the standard of probably an emergency. Okay.
Right.
Now we're also discussing if the United States has the ability to kick in Venezuela's door and shoot Maduro dead in his home. right? The home mirrors the nation state. Would you not agree here?
Yes.
So this is a legitimate question. What's your probable cause? Right? No one's saying that the cops can't kick in your door. We just want to know why they're kicking in your door. You see what I'm saying? So this is one of those ones where I don't think that the United States government, the current regime, has been completely honest with us about what our beef with Venezuela is. Clearly it's Tren de Agua, but we let MS-13 go on for decades. We let El Chapo go on for decades. Why this one now? Right? Isn't this just another gang to come and go?
Maybe they're just not paying their protection money.
Who knows what the situation is? Jesse Waters yesterday kind of consolidated all the different Pentagon announcements into this announcement here.
52 bombers are flying off the coast of Venezuela.
Whoa.
Trump's not bluffing. Right now, more than 10,000 U.S. soldiers are built up in the Caribbean, on ships in Puerto Rico, locked and loaded. Special operations helicopters were just seen flying 90 miles from Venezuela's coast. The chopper units used by Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and the Green Berets. The Black Ops were spotted off the coast of Trinidad. They're very important for search and rescue missions. Also spotted Little Birds. They're smaller but faster, designed for quick insertion of special operators behind enemy lines. The Ghost was also confirmed to be in the Caribbean. That's the nickname for MV Ocean Trader. It's the kind of ship that doesn't want to be found. It's designed for black ops and special missions because it's dark and blends in with cargo. There's more. 10% of the U.S. naval power is now in the region. It's a major shift. There's subs, several destroyers, and F-35 fighters in Puerto Rico. That's on top of all the coke boats getting smoked to pieces by the week. Kilos of cocaine are washing ashore. Don't tell Hunter. Dozens of bad hombres becoming shark bait. It's got Maduro's attention. He's the dictator of the narco state, a very bad hombre. And we just doubled the bounty on his head. It's now 50 mil. According to the New York Times, Maduro offered us a dominant stake in Venezuela's oil, gold, and mineral wealth and promised to cut ties with Russia and China. And Trump and Rubio said no. That tells me the gunboat diplomacy is going to end up with no Maduro and a Venezuela aligned with us, not Putin or Xi. American action in Latin America hasn't always ended well. Look at the Bay of Pigs. Other times, it's a piece of cake. It's our backyard. And Trump's just reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine, a.k.a. the Dunroe Doctrine. Hopefully, a Venezuelan general does the right thing and collects the $50 million bounty. No one wants a messy conflict in South America. Maduro controls drug traffickers who are pretty strapped. They have military-grade weapons. And Biden let hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans into the country. They could be activated. But if Trump can pull this off and kick China and Russia out of Venezuela after what he did with the Iranians, it'll give him a lot of power to deter Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan.
So,
Fox News Alert
B being run by narco terrorists.
Oh, there you go.
We did that episode on your country is being run by narco terrorists.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. Sounds like Maduro was like, hey, I'll play ball. You can have half my oil, half this, half that. Just don't kill me. Rubio and Trump were like, nah. In fact, double that bounty. So I don't think they're being honest with us about Venezuela. I think they're kind of saying it's all Tren de Agua. And yeah, I mean, we got to go. But when have we ever done this for a foreign gang? Right. So I think this has to do with overthrowing the government.
Really? I think this might have something to do with that. Yeah.
I think this might have something to do with overthrowing the government. Okay. So we are going to, I want to go into the private. I want to get into the private, and I want to be with my unoffendables friends, because we are going to play exactly what Venezuela and these guys kind of had in plan. Apparently in this whole hubbub, there has been a lot of leaks. Okay. And leaks are like anything. Until you verify the leak, it's kind of just that. Like WikiLeaks was unconfirmed until one day it was confirmed, right? There's apparently leaks of emails between Merrick Garland and some other players talking about essentially where they were taking the conclusion of the J6 insurrection, MAGA is American Taliban mentality, right?
Okay.
They've said a lot of these things, and you chalk it up to hyperbole until they actually do it, right? So we're going to play that over in the private. It's a clip from Patrick Byrne. I think it's worth playing. We're also going to be hearing from Newt Gingrich in the private, and we're going to be just hearing a little jubilation about someone who's rooting for the IRS to be closed and went on CNN and talked about that. But before we do that, I just want to let you guys all know that over in private, we need to be unoffendables. Okay. We can't be like the white people that this woman has been hanging around. We just can't do it.
I'm a white woman that has lived in a red state my entire life. And I can tell you, when I'm around white people, they test the racist water. They test it on people like you all the time. And they'll try to say off-color things. I put my hand up. It absolutely happens. And you're fortunate that maybe you haven't experienced it.
Can I just say, literally this August, a white person said the N-word.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a white woman that has lived in a red state my entire life.
Literally,
and I can
this
tell
August,
you when I'm around white people.
The N-word. This August?
That's November.
That's November.
The N-word. It hasn't even happened yet.
Oh, that's so funny. A white person said the N-word this August? Are you kidding me? Anyways, I don't know. I found that clip funny. Didn't really have a great place to fit it in anywhere. Okay, guys, we're going to jump over to the private. Thank you for joining us today. Those of us that are not going to be joining us over, but please do. And also, please don't forget to repost the show, like the show, leave a comment. It all helps with the algorithm. Hopefully, we'll be twice the audience.
Give a quick mention to our YouTube friends there. We got somebody that made a post.
Yeah, Love Forgiven. Hello, watching from Florida. LA Forgiven. Yeah. You should join us over on Rumble. That's where the real party's at. That's where everybody's chatting. Yeah, join us over on Rumble, LA Forgiven, if you're still listening. But everyone else, we will talk to you again tomorrow.